Welcome to the Secret Improv Podcast, where we share backstage secrets from the world of improv. I'm Kristian Ruggieri.
And I'm Goose Duarte. We are members of the Secret Improv Society, a show that has been running for 18 years downtown San Francisco.
Every week, we explore a new random topic about the craft of improvisation. No script,
No limits,
no secrets.
This is the Secret Improv Podcast.
Okay, yeah. Here's a great topic for your podcast. What are the limitations of improv shows? You can discuss things like time constraints, audience expectations, the challenge of keeping things fresh, or the difficulty of balancing comedy with storytelling. Let me know if you want a different one. Goose, we talked about, offending the audience or doing something that's offensive to younger people in the audience, but this question was about audience expectations. And do you feel a need to meet audience expectations? Do you even know what they are?
I don't think about that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not a product that you design for a market segment, right? You offer it, and those who like it come and watch it. However, I do think that throughout the course of the one show, of the evening, we do have a responsibility to set the audience expectations correctly. Right? This is why after we do our conduct category die warm-up thing, I think that one of the first things we should do is a scene. Like if we go straight into a song or if we go straight into conducted experts, the audience doesn't realize that the majority of our show is going to be scenes with some kind of game embedded into them, right?
Yeah.
You create an expectation with the first few minutes of the show. You're making a promise.
Right.
We also, we're promising them interaction. Even though in the warm-up, we come out and we say, this is interactive, you're going to give us suggestions, we're going to make them happen, you're going to be yelling things.
Yeah.
It's an interactive thing. So there's a promise. I don't know that they bring it with them, but once the show starts, we establish the expectation for them.
Yeah.
And then we do need to deliver that.
Yes.
That's the one place where I do think about the audience expectation.
Yeah. I'm thinking. That's why I'm looking off to the side. I mean, I think all of that is true. And I think that over the years, we have become so good at telling the audience that in the beginning and doing things early, whether it's just saying our name. And I mean, just having them say, this is Goose. Everybody say, hi, Goose. Hi, Goose.
Yeah.
We have a lot of ways to get them participating at the top of the show that set the expectation, even if the person introducing it forgets to say some of those things out loud. So I think that it's not something I think about because it's kind of that unconscious competence. We're doing it.
Right.
Setting the expectation for them.
Yeah.
Although when I read that question, I do think I don't know how in my consciousness it is, but I do want the audience to have a good time. Like I think there's some expectation that they came to see a show.
Right.
Is it gonna make them laugh out loud the entire time? No, probably not. But I feel like there's some unspoken expectation. They came to have a good time. They came to be entertained. They came to see something that was funny.
Yeah.
And that we need to deliver on all of those.
Right.
Although, again, I don't think it's in my consciousness too much because I know that we do it.
Right.
Without having to, at least those of us who've been doing it for a while, we don't have to make an effort. We just trust the process that we're going to do what we do.
Unconscious competence.
Right. And people will enjoy it, and something in an hour and a half is going to be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with that. I always I have always avoided calling improv comedy when people who don't know what I do, they go, "Oh, you're still doing that comedy thing." Part of me feels like, oh, they're thinking of stand-up.
Right.
So I don't like calling it comedy.
Right.
But I do know that the people who come to the show want to see comedy. They're not coming here to see an improvised Shakespearean tragedy.
Right.
And we might be amazing, and we might be able to improvise a phenomenal storyline and characters and all of that. That's not what they came here for. They came to see a comedy show. If they don't laugh, they're not going to be happy when they leave.
Right. Right. And because that is the majority of what we give them, we can sneak in a scene that is more serious.
Yeah.
Or quiet. And then it ends up being a nice change of pace, and it brings that variety of, oh,
right.
Well, now the funny things are even more funny because look, it's not all funny.
Right. Yeah, I think that we do some scenes that if they were scripted, they would have no comedy in them. Mm-hmm. There would be nothing funny about the scenes we do if they were fully scripted. Mm-hmm. That they're only funny because they know that we are basically running downhill, right? We are just struggling to keep our feet from under us. Like when we do the backwards alphabet scene, right? Yeah. The scene could be very serious. It could be like an actual, heartfelt conversation between two people who have come to realize that they don't belong together and they break up. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it in an backwards alphabet scene, you're going to get laugh after laugh because people are wondering, what are they going to say with this next letter?
Right.
Can they think of it? Is it all of that? That's funny because it's improv.
Yeah.
We have. I don't know that I could actually do an improv show that's not funny. I don't think that I could, even if I wanted to.
Right.
So I don't think about that. Yeah. I don't think about the fact that the audience is coming to watch an improv show. I agree that that's an expectation, but I think it's inherent in the format. Mm-hmm. The funny thing. Mm-hmm. So the question actually talks about the limitations.
Right.
And while it doesn't say this, one of the things that I notice is very limiting to my chagrin is the size of the stage. Just inherently. The fact that we are in a stage.
Yeah.
Right. We do occasionally, we had this workshops with Tim where he talked about, expanding the stage and doing things where you're on one side of the stage and you're on the other side of the stage, but you can have miles between you, right?
Right.
But we don't do that.
No, we don't play around with that very much at all.
And I would like that. I do find that limiting. In fact, sometimes we go to the audience and say, what's a location that fits in the stage?
Yeah.
Because we want to put everything in the stage in real
dimensions
size.
or proportions
exactly.
or whatever.
Proportion. Yes.
Yeah.
And we do occasionally, especially I find in the beach scenes when somebody goes in the water, somebody stays on the beach, that happens. Mm-hmm. We do occasionally do that kind of split thing, but I think that there's so much more.
Sure.
Time splits.
Yeah.
We could be watching a scene that happens, the parents are talking about they're just finally getting together and meeting, and then the scene with the family years later, right? Mm-hmm. That contrast of time having passed. Mm-hmm. There's so much more that we could do that I don't feel we fully explored. And I don't know if that's necessarily a limitation inherent in the format.
Right.
But I do think that we, from my experience, it's not something that people focus on trying to break out of.
True.
And this all started with me saying, Tim was showing us how to do that. So there's some people
Yeah, some people are definitely more aware of how to break out of it. And those, I think, are the type of skills that you learn or practice or are able to do the more you've been doing this. Because when you start, it's all you can do to think, what did you say? Where am I? How do I accept what you told me? What is the character, relationship, objective, and where am I? You know, how do I make sure I'm adding and not blocking? So I think when you're just getting started and trying to...
Yeah, but I've been improvising for 25 years.
Yeah, so fucking why don't you use the stage more, Goose? Come on. Why don't you do it more?
No, I think that limitation, that square boundary around the stage is not on the stage. I think it's in my head.
Yeah.
Right? It's in my habits, in the way that I do this. One thing I personally have been very mindfully doing is putting, what like Tim says, putting the door in the middle of the stage, right? Not knocking from off stage and waiting until the door opens before I actually enter. But be standing on stage and see me on the other side of the door.
Right.
There could be so much that happens before the door opens.
Right.
It's just one of those little things that I've been trying to do, but I would like us to do it more as a group.
Yes, and I think it would be a great thing to rehearse because some of those things, like I've seen you even in a recent show where you've been about to enter the room, but you are walking up some stairs or down a hall, and we can see all of that before you knock on the door.
Right.
Which is the kind of stuff, one example of the stuff that we were learning with Tim. I think that's...
I do that just to let you guys know that I'm about to enter the scene. Yeah. It's like a way of going like, hey, here I come.
Yeah, which I appreciate the heads up. And I think when you do things like that, it's very obvious what you're doing. Some of the other things that you're talking about, split focus in different times, or the example you give of being miles apart on stage.
Right.
I think might be harder to convey if other people in the group, myself included, haven't been talking about this and thinking about this, so that when you do make some call, instead of people going, well, that don't make no sense, he's only 2 feet away from me. Right. People think, oh, he must be on the edge of the building across the street. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I don't think that's the kind of magic that one person can bring into the scene. Right, yes. It can only happen if we intentionally as a group agree that this is something that could happen.
Yes.
Which is why I'm saying, like,
okay.
I want us to do it.
Okay, heard. Yes, chef, heard.
No, I'm not pointing you. I'm just exploring in my mind, like, what are the limitations?
Yeah.
What are the edges?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Other limitations. I mean, sometimes we are limited by music, or not. Yeah. Sometimes we have Devin, and then we have access to someone who can play the guitar, can play the keyboard, and is with us in every scene, and his sole focus is to either be playing songs or scoring it or working the music. Other times we have people in the group who can play guitar. Yeah. So we get to do some musical things.
But most of the time there's no music.
But most of the time there's no music unless there is some musical scene.
Right.
And then Chet and Joelle, whichever one of them it is, they're in the scene if they're playing guitar, but they're not, because they're, they don't get to necessarily sing the song if they're the only one there that night and have to play guitar. And then there have been nights when we've had no one to do any musical. Yeah. Like, I know those of us, especially those of us who got used to having a musician with us every single show, I definitely feel the limitation when we have no one that can play any original music for us.
Right.
And we still do a fine show. I also think, though, there's so many games and scenes and things that we know about that we know can't be part of it.
Right.
The audience, and what I tell myself in those moments is we still are going to do a great show.
Yes.
And the audience, if they've come before, maybe they'll notice that no one's on music.
Oh, they don't have a musician this time.
But they might not even, that might not even be something that they register.
Right.
And for the majority
of the audience, I can guarantee you
yeah.
that no one comes back to our shows because they love us singing.
Yeah. Ooh, touche. Yeah. So that's when we have no music.
Yeah.
I feel that limitation, and what I have to tell myself is the audience has no idea that this is unusual for us. So don't get worked up.
Right. Yeah, it's somebody. I heard somebody who was born with like only one arm or something like that. And they asked him, like, what's it like to not have another arm? And he said, what is it like not to have a third one?
Right.
Like, you don't know. If you never had it, you don't miss it. Right? It's not a limitation if you've never experienced it. And there's a lot of improv shows that don't really do or have scoring throughout, right? Mm-hmm. So, yes, I can see how it feels like a limitation
for us
when we have grown used to doing it.
Yeah.
And in a sense it is not to have those options, but it makes me think of the people. There's a whole improv style where they have props, and this is a Keith Johnston thing. I don't know if you ever had the opportunity. He would have like a group of people whose whole job is to set the scene. So when they say it's a living room, they push out a couch,
right?
And they have like little night tables, and they may have like a couple of like plants, and then it's not a full living room, but it's a stage living room.
Sure,
it's what you would see on a regular play,
right?
And then the actors have the props. They're physically in a scene, where they can interact, where they can like plop themselves in the couch.
Yeah,
we can't do that.
Right.
Does it seem like a limitation to us? It opens up the possibilities. Like at Bats, they have a couch that has that hole in the back,
right?
And people can pop through the couch,
right?
And they use it. People use it all the time. We don't have that,
right?
But it's not a limitation to us,
right?
Right. So I'm not challenging your perspective of like it feels limiting.
Better not be. No. No, I realize you're not.
But I'm seeing that yes, these limitations are really about what we expect we should have or we could have. Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't know that we have necessarily yet unearthed like a full boundary that is inherent in improvisation, right? Not the stage, not the expectations, not the music or the props, or whether or not we're going to offend somebody. Like I haven't found the boundaries yet. I haven't found those limitations solid, inherent in the art format.
Yeah.
You talk about time,
right?
Is that limiting? I don't know. I don't know if time's a limitation. I think we impose it ourselves. We do short form. We do like 5 minute scenes, and then we do something else. And I love that. I love the variety it provides. But we could be doing long form. We could be doing one long scene for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would consider the length of the show a limitation either.
Right.
Right. Any more than, a movie is limited because of its running length. It's just how long it is.
Right. Yeah, I don't see time as a limitation, especially since we have flexibility on when the show ends.
Right.
We end it around the same time every night, but sometimes we start a little late, so we go a little longer.
Right.
Or sometimes it's super hot audience and it's fun, and so we do another thing because we're having a good time. Or sometimes the opposite is true. We think, that's enough. Everybody,
let's
please
get out of here.
Everybody, please.
That was a good scene. Let's end there.
Everybody, please go home. But I feel like we've got plenty of time to do a variety of scenes and showcase the people who are in the show that night. So I don't think of time as being a limitation.
Yeah. The other thing these things ask is about the difficulty of balancing comedy and storytelling.
It's not difficult because I'm not trying to do it.
You're not trying to do what?
Balance comedy and storytelling.
Say more.
Well, I don't feel like I'm ever trying to do comedy when I do the improv.
Right.
Like, I'm not...
I don't think you are. I agree. But I'm not specifically talking about you, Kristian.
Yes.
I don't think you are ever trying to do comedy.
Yes.
Which is why it's so effective.
Yes.
But I do think that we have identified such thing as a gag.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When we make a joke at the expense of the scene.
Yes.
And to me, that is a distress to the balance between comedy and storytelling.
Okay.
We are tilting into the side of comedy so far that the story falls apart. Like the whole reality of the scene falls apart.
Yes.
Right? When we comment on difficulties that we're having as performers.
Yes.
There are places where you sacrifice the story for the sake of comedy, and I don't mean you.
Yeah.
Right? But that does happen.
Okay.
And is that something that we strive to avoid?
I don't think that we do strive to avoid it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those of us who have been doing it for a longer time understand the comedy will come.
Right.
In trying to stay truthful to the story.
Sure.
Whether it's a mistake someone makes that then gets latched on and becomes something, or whether it's just the reactions people have. I think the comedy is a byproduct of the storytelling for most of us.
Yes.
There are people who... some people are, I think, more focused on it needs to be funny. Right. I have something funny. And that, I agree, comes at the expense of the storytelling. Right. And I do agree with you about that a gag can take away from the story.
Yeah.
And while I don't go into scenes with a mindset of this has to be funny, this has to be funny, I for sure have pulled out a line at the end you say derailed the story, I say brings it to a natural conclusion.
I don't think every gag necessarily derails the story.
Right.
I'd say it has the potential.
Okay. Yeah. But so I think, in general, gags do take away from the storytelling. Sometimes I think they can be useful to end a scene that needs to end.
Right.
Like if a scene's not going if a scene's not finding a natural way to wrap up, sometimes, and that's what she said, is a way.
Yeah. Not
to
that
have
we've ever actually said the word.
No,
said on the show. But
I can't think of an actual example right now. But like saying something, some line that you know is going to get a laugh.
Right.
That's related to the story. I mean, it's not like we pull out a "that's what she said" for no reason, but it's going to help the person on lights think, okay, that's it.
Right.
Enough.
Yeah.
How about you?
I do have an internal balancing act. Because not every time, but many times when I hear the suggestion, I can think of that gag. I can think of that punchline.
Oh, God.
I know, if I were to say this, that would be really funny. But I also know through experience that if I start there, there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
Right? I basically just ended the scene. Like, Shift Left is a great example of a place to horribly avoid that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to come back.
Right.
And if the first thing you said is like a 10-second gag, and then you have to come back and somehow continue the scene, it's deadly.
Mm-hmm.
So when I recognize that, here's this line that I could say, I put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I patiently wait to see if the story goes in that direction.
Yeah.
And I will try to egg it in that direction. I will try to push it, but I also very willing to let it go. And there's so many lines that I think, this could be amazing, that I just never say because the story didn't set me up for it.
Yeah.
Right? And if I force it, then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. And then every once in a while, the chips fall in the right place, and I say something brilliant, and everybody loves it, and I go home, and I feel very proud of myself. But I recognize, the experience has taught me to recognize that I will sacrifice the scene with the joke, and not to do the joke until it's ready, until the right moment, until I know the scene's over, until I know this is going to kill, and the lights are going to come down. And it could be a 20-second scene. Yeah. Right? We've done that. Yeah. But the lights have to come down. If they don't, I don't know where to go from there. Yeah. Like, that just feels like killing. To me, that's the balance.
Yeah. Fascinating. Because I don't think I have ever heard a suggestion and thought of a punchline or something funny to say. Yeah, so it's just so interesting to me how different minds work.
I bet you just haven't noticed.
Maybe.
Because you have great timing. You have great instincts.
Yeah.
You know what's funny.
Yeah.
Right? I suspect that somewhere inside, because it's not like it happens every time.
Right.
Right. It might be like once a show, if I'm lucky,
right,
that this happens. Right. I just know to delay it. Yeah, I honestly would be surprised if you've never naturally just thought of like, this is where he goes. I believe...
For the viewers at home, Kristian is shaking her head and making a face like, no, I don't get it. Yeah, it's, like, I believe I could think of something funny, but I don't know. I hear this, it's not where my brain goes. Like, I would have to go into a show with the intention, like, remind myself before, you know what, my challenge to myself this weekend is take the obvious suggestion that comes to you first. It's the one that comes to the mind of everyone in the audience, and throw it away, and what's next.
Right.
Because I don't often do that. I mostly, what comes first? Okay.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we found that no, I don't think that there really are limitations other than the ones that we impose upon ourselves.
Right.
Because it is improv. You could be anything. You could be a flower. You could be a bowling pin.
That's it.
Right.
On the Secret
Like, we
Improv
have more
Podcast.
freedom than
If you like what you heard,
anyone else.
subscribe.
Like, we can
and share this
create
with your
worlds
friends and lovers.
in the
We'll
audience's
be back next
mind
week
just with a
another
few
random
words.
topic and more unscripted wisdom.
How can there be a limitation?
Yeah. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah.